I'd like to add a thank you to Don, because his work starts even before the beginning of the year. He starts putting together the training. We usually do anywhere from 2 to 4 trainings in January and February. We post that to the website. And when I say we, I'm the support crew. He is the one that puts it all together and does the training, which is excellent. And then as people start putting the information in, he is answering the questions, he's clearing up the warnings, and we're working together on that. So it is a tremendous amount of work that he does as a volunteer position. And so I'm grateful, again, say thank you to Don. Where'd you go already? For your work. All right, ready to pop mine up?
Yes, Sarah, it's gonna get coming.
Okay. As I was walking down here this morning, I happened to be behind 2 women, and I said, how's it going for you? And they said, pretty good. And the one person was first time here. And it made me rethink what I was saying today, because oftentimes we assume it's always been that way, or everybody knows what's going on. So I'll try to adjust a few things for those of you who are here for the first time to give a little bit more detail. So the topics that I want to cover today are 2022 preliminary financial results. We haven't done the audit yet, so that's why I'm calling them preliminary. I'll talk to you about a few of the things that are happening in 2023 that I think you'll find interesting, and then we'll talk about the 2024 budget. And this information is all on page 31 to 45 of part 1 of your materials. So let's take a look at 2022 first. How did that adorable new grandson of mine show up here?
Oh, wow.
For those of you who are grandparents, I never quite understood those signs that you'll see. Grandchildren are God's gifts for not killing your teenagers. And now I understand exactly what that means. That 30-year-old that I always wondered how in the world, he is now a very sweet father. So looking forward to going to see him, my new little grandson, tomorrow. Let's go to apportionments then. That is kind of the lifeblood of the funding for us as a conference, and then we pay it on to GCF&A. So we had over 240 churches paid 100% of their apportionments this year. I'm very grateful to all of you for that. In many of our Many of the staff taglines say your apportionment dollars at work, and we truly could not do the support to you without the support coming in. So thank you very, very much. I did have one church called and said their plaque is all the way down to the floor, and they wanted to know if they could get a new one. So I do have that with me. And if that ever happens to you, please let us know, because we're more than happy. I know we've had some churches that had to keep raising it because their tags have gone down to the floor already. So thank you very much. Next, so what we continually look at every year is every month, actually, how are our apportionments doing toward budget? And the gross apportionments are those amount that we allocate out to the churches. And the budget for this year was that we would receive $6,145,000. We actually received $6,063,000. So we were just under budget by $81,000. So very, very close to what we expected. Again, thank you for that. Amazingly, is these numbers that might be a little small, but we'll also put them on our conference webpage. There were over 125 programs that churches supported with extra giving, advanced specials otherwise, and it is amazing what the people of this state have contributed to when you see a need both locally, statewide, US, and international. You can see over $337,000 was given to UMCOR for direct programs, and an extra $107,000 was collected on UMCOR Sunday that helps fund the administration of the UMCOR program. Also, an extra $372,000 for international disaster relief, $148,000 for US disaster, Bread for the World. You're also very supportive of Children's Services, Northcott Neighborhood House, the annual conference gathering. And then it's wonderful to see every church also has their individual programs that they help support, and we're the conduit to get those funds back out. So thank you for the support you're giving to Wisconsin and worldwide. Next one. In addition to the funding that comes from the apportionments, we also have these kinds of funding. We have over 80 accounts in the Wisconsin United Methodist Foundation, totaling over $14.5 million that have either been through previous fundraisings, donations, restricted giving, or accumulated earnings of the conference over time. And during 2022, we were able to use $530,000 of earnings in our operational program. We also got $150,000 donation from the East Wisconsin Pension Trust, and we have program fees for our participant fees for events. In terms of expenses, we were also right at budget, and on the far right-hand column, you'll see where groups were over or under. Most of them were pretty close to their budget. Clergy and lay leadership were actually under budget, and a lot of that had to do with the $50,000 that was set aside for some planning on our radical inclusion, racial justice was not all used, and our earnings from joint board were higher than expected coming over from the foundation. So again, some of the positive results that we had then for 2022. One more? Okay. So that apportionment results were very close to what was budgeted. We were able to pay GCF&A 100% of our allocation. The churches that were approved for closing netted $555,000 from the sale of the buildings, the transfer of the assets. And according to conference policies, those are put into 3 different foundation accounts. 95% of it is then used for new ministry. Half of that goes into available for the next year. Half of it, 45%, goes into an endowment fund. And 5% is available for the trustees to use to help care for closed churches until we're able to sell it. And we also were able to issue $185,000 for GROAT grants last year alone. The next slide shows the GROAT grant summary. So unfortunately, the GROAT grant funds have been used up. It was intended when the program, when the original bequest was received, that it not just be one that sits there and pays out earnings, but that it be used directly to help churches. So the initial bequest came in 2016 for $365,000. In total, 69 awards were granted, totaling $579,000 during a 5-year period. And thank you to the foundation for your work with investing. The program actually earned $214,000 during that time period that the funds were in the foundation. So that's why we were able to issue far more than what was originally bequested. So thank you again. I hope that all 69 of those awards, it was fun when we got back photos and stories about how those funding had helped your churches. So Board of Trustees are looking at where we can get additional funds to continue helping churches in that way. I have had a few questions about 2023 and what is the impact of the disaffiliations. So of the 43 churches that disaffiliated, one of the steps was that they were required to make a payment by May 26th. So we have received the full $3.9 million from these 43 churches, and here's what it was for. They were required to be up to date on their apportionments for the previous 12 months. From May 1st of 2022 to April 30th of 2023, there was $302,000 from that. They were required to pay 1 year going forward of apportionments, it's $875,000. They had to pay for their May and June premiums for health and pension, and then the unfunded pension liability. For those of you churches that are ongoing, you pay part of this every time you pay your pension, but for those that were leaving, they had to make a lump sum contribution. And then each of them had to pay an estimated $10,000 for legal fees, and as we pay those out, we may be refunding some of that. But right now, that $3.9 million is sitting in a separate account. Once we finish all of the legal paperwork and transfer, then we will be moving that money to their respective places that it belongs. The next one is Boy Scouts. So we've heard about the Boy Scouts for several years. There was a $30 million settlement by the United Methodist Church. Of that, 208,000 was allocated to our conference. We have already paid in $20,000 in legal fees, and we have received donations for $30,000. So that means that we have 157,719 left to pay. We'd like to do that by the end of the year, and so we'll either be using additional contributions or need to pull it from reserves. I would like to say a big thank you to the 24 churches that have already contributed to the fund and the 37 individuals that have made contributions. And if you as an individual would like to make a contribution, you can go to the conference website, click on the Donate Now, and then choose Boy Scouts. If your church would like to make a donation into this fund, you can either do it as part of your monthly payment of your apportionment, you can include it with your check and just identify the amount to Boy Scouts, or you can do it through the ministry financial online. And we'll keep you posted on how that's doing. If anybody has been to the conference center lately, you know, something's always happening. But last fall, I went down to St. Louis to visit my dad, and I got a call that the building was falling down. So over on the left, in a heavy windstorm, the siding started falling off. And of course, because things have changed in the last 40 years, code's not the same, the thickness is not the same, they actually had to take off the entire front side of the building, put up new insulation, put up new siding. We also had to wait for the weather to be consistently above 50 degrees for 4 days, which didn't happen this spring. So they're finally working on it now, and we're hoping by the end of June that we have a new face. We're rebuilding the United Methodist Church out in Sun Prairie as well. All right, now the exciting part, the 2024 budget.
I think let me pause this moment. I'm not going into the budget, but I need to say to all of you that this is last 2 years was extraordinary year with many different legal and many part of management, not only conference finance and other factor. Our chancellor, our team, and Sarah have been very active in that way. So I need to really say thank you for your work before going to our budget presentation. So give a hands to your treasurer. It is amazing work that she's been doing. Thank you.
Okay, 2024 budget. I hope at some point in time that we can do a budget in a normal process, but I would say that ever since I started here, and that was 4 years ago, that it's been an unusual couple of years. So this year what we did for the budget is take the 2022 financial results and what I assumed might be some assumptions for 2024 and talk these over with the cabinet and with the Council on Finance Administration and prepared an initial draft. We needed to consider what the effect of the disaffiliating churches, and when we started the budget, we didn't know exactly how many churches those would be. It turned out to be 43. We did not know exactly what our apportionment would be to GCF&A, so we got that. Then we went to the joint board to find out what their estimates for health insurance and other benefits would be for next year. And we talked to personnel about any proposals for staffing changes, increases in wages, and we calculated out what the conference policy of health and housing, or sorry, salary and housing would be for our DSs. And with that, we put together a budget, talked about it with Cabinet and CF&A a couple of times, and came up to the budget that we are presenting to you today. So the first thing that we take a look at is what do we do with apportionments? And I had a strong feeling, and Cabinet agreed, that we do not want the remaining churches to suffer because of the disaffiliating churches. So we took the apportionments that we had for 2023 and deducted out the $880,000 that was previously assigned to the disaffiliating churches and came up with a new gross apportionment of $6.9 million. And then from there, we decided that we would go with a slightly higher percentage paid for 82%. So those are how we got to those two numbers. There's a lot of question as what do we use for gross, what do we use for net, what is appropriate, and hopefully from that understanding you can see why we did what we did. We also said that there was no way that we could take all of that in 1 year. And so because we are getting that 303,000 that I said, those churches who had not paid in full from the previous year had to pay that 303, we're able to use that plus half of the amount that they had going forward, and then they were going to apply half of that 880 into our 24 budget. So hopefully that made sense, but it's saying that we're taking part of the money that we got from the disaffiliating churches and applying it into the 2024 budget, and then we're starting to make changes in how we are operating also. And we also have a little bit more money that we can use from the foundation in 2024, so I estimated that we'd get $661,000 from our funds there. I said that some of our salaries for all of the DSs and the assistant to the bishop are set by a conference policy. One of the numbers that we had to get an estimate from the joint board was medical, and they are working to lower what we expected to be a 10% increase down. And so something will be coming out next month saying what the numbers will be for next year. And so, but that's what I used to estimate. Our general church amount went up by $130,000. We wanted to keep $50,000 in the budget. We're calling it the Beloved Community Initiative now. And we wanted to continue to support Wisconsin Council of Churches, Northcott Neighborhood House, and the other programs that we support. So that made it kind of interesting when you can't change some things, but you have to change other things. And so I am grateful to the cabinet for coming up with some changes, and to CFNA for being creative with how we could do this. The next slide, this is one where I can say that we're spending our money consistently with how we have done it in the past in terms of percentage, but that may not mean anything if you're new. So I'd like for you to flip back to part 1, page 37. I just want to walk through what some of these things are. So on page 34 and 35, there's a summary budget, just 2-page, but on page 36, it starts going into the detail of what makes everything up. And I just wanted to give you a little bit more background. So when we talk about local congregational development, that includes the new ministry strategy board, the money that we are paying out to help start new churches or also to regenerate churches. And we wanted to put a little bit more money into that in 2024 because we know that there are some people who are not leaving with disaffiliating churches and we need to help them find a new home or get something new started. It also is our ethnic local church concerns, our committees on Hispanic Latino ministry, the cabinet. One of the questions that I get is about travel. And I think we have to go back to the old circuit riders. One of the advantages, or one of the parts that make us who we are, is that our DSs go out and visit their churches and work with them. And the more that they meet with churches and can be a resource to them, that's a good thing. If we could get gas prices down, that would help our budget, but I don't have much control over that one. So the global connectional ministries are all of the funds that we pay into the General Council on Finance Administration. So you'll see that we support Africa University, Black College Fund, the Episcopal Fund that pays for our bishop, the General Administration, Interdenominational Cooperation, also the Jurisdictional Conference Fund, the Ministerial Education Fund, and then the World Service Fund. Part of the apportionments, half of the apportionments that come in from the Ministerial Education Fund stay here and go into a foundation account, and then Ty's department, the Board of Ordained Ministry, has control over those funds. The clergy and lay leadership includes the Connectional Table, the Connectional Table Resource Team, our Board of Higher Education, and so we help fund campus ministries, and our Board of Laity, our Board of Ordained Ministry, our joint board that cares for our active and retired ministers, and our youth council, which historically have not had a lot of activity, but we're planning more in 23 and 24. And then we go into our connectional ministries. which is we help support our camps through staffing, insurance, and property taxes, Board of Church and Society, our very active Board of Global Ministry, Commission on Race and Religion, Communications and IT, that helps fund Lisa and everything that we have here and the support that she gives to local churches. Commissions on, basically the next one is the Wisconsin Council of Churches, the delegation to go to NCJ and to General Conference, and Ministry and Outreach. It also, did I miss one there? And it's our Personnel Committee that involves all of our staffing. And our staffing includes our DS, our Assistant to the Bishop, our Administrative Assistant to the Bishop, Director of Congregational Development, it's BOOM, it's Ministry and Outreach, and it's the Finance Department. So those are all connectional ministry, along with programs and arrangements. And then you get into the conference support ministry. That's Board of Trustees, Archives, our conference office, conference secretary, CFNA, Episcopacy Committee. One item that I can say, as interest rates are going up, we have planned to have more interest income. We're also going to have those funds that we collected from disaffiliation, so we'll have more interest income there. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more idea about where these monies go. Our total expenses budgeted for '24 are close to 6.1 million. Just to let you know, this is one part of our operations. And so this is what's funded from apportionments. We have another fund that is that 14.5 million in the foundation. And our two other funds are the pension and healthcare. My department does billing for about $8 million a year for pension and health care for all of the active and retired clergy. So I asked Jean to fill me in on the number. We have 300 active clergy and we have 600 retired clergy and spouses that she provides consulting to, help with as they plan their health and retirement. So thank you to Jean for that. She's overdoing the health and wellness this morning. And that is everything for the budget. I think there's one more slide there. Yes. I used this one last year, so you may see it every year. Thus ends the reading of the budget. If you want to hear any more about it, feel free to contact me. I am going to be over near the speaker number 1 or microphone number 1 if you have any questions for me. So we presented the budget now. Tomorrow afternoon, we will have a time for questions and answers, a discussion, and a vote on the budget. But please, if you have any questions between now and then, come and find me. I'm also out in the lobby, or my email is over in the corner. I can respond to that, or you can give me a call too.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Let's give our hands to her. Okay.